If you want to know what's been happening here at home and around the world, well, you're tuned into the correct channel. A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News live on News First. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Shahan Rampati. Let's take a look at your headlines tonight.
Water cannons used to disperse protesting university students. Special commodity levy on dal increased from midnight tonight. A supplementary estimate of 18 billion approved in Parliament for government expenses. The Supreme Court rules the National Audit Bill is in accordance with the Constitution. Gold medalist of the 100-meter relay at the South Asian Junior Athletic Championship to miss Asian Games.
Speaker Karu Jayasuriya today had to correct his announcement to Parliament of the Supreme Court's determination on the National Audit Bill. As Parliament convened, Speaker Karu Jayasuriya announced to the House the Supreme Court has determined that the National Audit Bill is not in accordance with the Constitution.
I would like to announce the determination of the Supreme Court with regard to the petition pertaining to Article 126(1) of the Constitution concerning the National Audit Bill. The Supreme Court has determined that this bill is not in accordance with the Constitution. I hereby order that the report containing the Supreme Court's decision be printed into the day's agenda.
However, during the parliamentary debate, the Speaker corrected his first statement.
What I said was that the Supreme Court had determined the bill is in accordance with the Constitution. It hadn't been heard properly.
Meanwhile, a supplementary estimate of 18,034 million rupees was presented in Parliament today. The supplementary estimate was presented by Chief Government Whip, Minister Gayantha Karunatilaka, to cover government allowances, salaries and travel expenses incurred during a one-month period. A sum of 1,250 million rupees has been allocated for the Mahapula Fund.
The special commodity levy on dal has been increased with effect from midnight today.
The Ministry of Finance said the commodity levy on a kilogram of split red lentils, which was at 3 rupees, has been increased to 12 rupees. The special commodity levy on a kilogram of whole red lentils has been increased from 1 rupee to 7 rupees. The Finance Ministry said the special commodity levy was amended, taking into account the reduction of prices of dal in the world market. The Ministry added retail prices in the domestic market will not be affected as a result of this tax amendment.
Railway trade unions decided to call off the strike action that was to be carried out after 12 noon today. The trade unions say that they received a positive response to their demands after the Cabinet of Ministers convened today.
The 4 railway trade unions were planning to carry out an island-wide strike action, citing anomalies in the salary. The strike was called off temporarily since the Cabinet of Ministers promised to provide a just solution to the issue. Trade unions decided to call off the strike since the Cabinet of Ministers had agreed to resolve the salary anomalies. Long-term power generation plan was also given attention at the Cabinet media briefing today.
The train issue was discussed in the Cabinet. Steps were taken to provide solutions.
There
were discussions. The approvals were given.
The issues will be resolved. The committee said they have received a fair solution. Minister Sarath Amanugama and Dr. Rajitha Senaratne will enact it. It was discussed. It wasn't very clear. A resolution was passed. Minister of Housing and Construction Sajith Premadasa responded to allegations that are raised regarding a plot of land in the Ipalogama area in Anuradhapura.
Fingers are pointed at me in a bid to assassinate my character. This is not something that has been happening for the past 2 or 3 days. It has been happening since the time of my father. The land for the Ipalogama housing project had been cleared after the recommendation of the Divisional Secretary. As the person in charge of the land in the area, when a land is cleared for a certain project, they should let us know about the suitability of that land. When the machines were being used, it was something that was being done out in the public. It was not done at a different time. There have been failures from the officials of the Housing Development Authority. The Divisional Secretariat had not looked at the relevant boundaries of the land and the construction had not been carried out with the supervision of the officials from our institution. We will take disciplinary action to the maximum possible level. I would like to state that no minister who is connected to this is working at my ministry. There is no point asking me that question. They are not under my ministry. If I have done something like that in my lifetime, I will not be able to get into my vehicle and go off. I say something like this to prove that I am clean. There is something like this. I have a policy to carry out by the end of 2019. That is to construct 2,500 Udagammana projects.
Udagammana 2500ක් ඉදි කිරීම.
මල්ලි රාජ්‍ය මන්ත්‍රීවරයා තමයි ඔබතුමාට මේ චෝදනාව කළේ නිදන් හොයනවා කියන මොකද එතුමාට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ.
එතුමාට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ මම එතුමාට අනුකම්පා කරනවා.
UPFA parliamentarian SB Disanayake, who was among the parliamentary group to join the opposition, made a statement in Parliament today.
යහපාලන රජයේ ගරු ආගමැතිතුමා ඒ වගේම එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ මැති ඇමතිවරු සමග
The 16 of us have nothing personal against the Honourable Prime Minister of the Good Governance Government, nor the ministers and MPs of the United National Party. All of them are our friends, whom we respect very much. He proved the trust this Parliament has upon him, so it is our responsibility to let him carry this government forward. When this motion of no confidence was brought forward, we were in favour of all the points stated with regard to the central bank bond scam. We also agree with the points raised in that motion, stating the downfall of the economy over the past 3 years. We feel we can join hands with the group here in the opposition and form a powerful movement against the United National Party. To the MPs in the ruling party and the Prime Minister, we would like to support the good things you do while seated in the opposition.
අපි විපක්ෂයේ ඉඳගෙන ඔබතුමාලට උදව් කරන්න කැමතියි.
තිලංග සුමතිපාල මහත්මයාත් එක්ක අපේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙවෙයි දැන් මේ.
This is not an issue with Tilanga Sumadipala, but the position of Deputy Speaker remains vacant at the moment. Could you explain that to us, please? I have to receive this message from the President, but I haven't received that message as yet. I was told the letter of resignation was handed over, but until then I cannot say anything based on the legality.
For your information, I would like to say, in the history of this Parliament, there have been those who have held the position of Speaker and Deputy Speaker while in the opposition. Even as we speak, the Chairman of committees sits in the opposition while holding the position of Deputy Speaker. So, I would like to inform you that if our party wants, Tilanga Sumatipala could remain as Deputy Speaker.
I will inform the President and Prime Minister and take the relevant measures.
Those in the Sri Lanka Freedom Party went and sat in the opposition before the mace was placed. Even we cross to the other side and talk before the mace is placed or when it is not there. So, according to parliamentary tradition, it only counts as a crossover when you do so after the mace is placed. But it doesn't seem to be the case in this instance. I am not sure if it is the President's new mechanism to adopt different social stratas in the party. I feel it is a political strategy.
Former Minister Mervin Silva called a media briefing in Colombo today.
I complained to the CID about the wrongdoings of the previous government. It has been 3 years and they still haven't recorded evidence from me. There is an organization called Elia. There are some people who would pay 5,000 rupees to 25,000 rupees to dine with Gotabaya Rajapaksa. I urge everyone to help me find a set of people who will take action against the wrongdoings of the previous government. As we all know, the wasp is a very docile creature. But if you disturb its peace, you will immediately be admitted to the hospital. Even the bee is like that, but we still manage to penetrate the beehive. Mervin Silva is also like that. I won't be vociferous like in the past, but that does not mean I am not taking action. I am in the process of formulating a plan. I won't be loyal to either side.
Police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse a protest organised by the Inter-University Students' Federation and Medical Faculty Students' Action Committee.
The protest march commenced from the University of California, urging authorities to provide a sustainable solution to the issues pertaining to the medical faculty of CITEM. The protesters later marched towards the University Grants Commission. The police anti-riot squad was deployed and barriers were placed beside the University Grants Commission by the police to prevent protesters from entering the premises. The students then requested authorities to provide them with an opportunity to discuss their issues with the relevant officials. However, since the students did not receive a satisfactory reply, they attempted to enter the premises by force. The police then fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse the crowd. Police media spokesperson SP Ruwan Gunasekara said the police had to take this action since the students were inconveniencing the general public by obstructing the main road. However, earlier today, the Colombo Court Magistrate had ordered the Inter-University Students' Federation to act in a manner which would not disrupt the activities of the general public.
The Judicature Amendment Bill was passed with amendments in Parliament today. The bill was passed with 119 members of Parliament voting in favour and 52 voting against.
Now, amendments to the bill were presented thereafter during the committee stage and was passed without a vote. This makes provisions for a permanent High Court at bar to try, hear and determine the trials of the offences specified in the 6th schedule of the Act. The bill was heavily objected by the opposition at the very outset of the debate.
This bill has to be discussed at the Sectoral Oversight Committee, but this process has been skipped. So debating and passing this bill in Parliament is in contravention of the law. Therefore, I call for this to be stopped immediately.
Honourable Speaker, we presented acts considered on the 8th of March in 2008.
New committees haven't even been appointed. I'm not talking about the old Sectoral Oversight Committee. There is no Sectoral Oversight Committee as we debate this bill.
Honourable MP, we discussed this matter among the party representatives and it was approved. Are you stating that all committees which were functioning during the previous session of Parliament is valid for this session as well? No, but we are having a meeting at 2:30 p.m. But legally, the Sectoral Oversight Committee is still valid. It does not get abolished.
But this had been discussed before the Supreme Court's determination. With the Supreme Court's determination, the nature of this bill changes. So even after that determination, should it not be discussed at the Sectoral Oversight Committee?
This bill is presented in Parliament today with all the amendments stated by the Supreme Court.
According to the point stated by the Supreme Court, the amendment that is to be made affects the Constitution. But how can you say these amendments won't be made?
Point of order, Honourable Speaker, our senior MP Dinesh Gunawardena read the first portion of the second paragraph in page 16 of the Supreme Court determination, but he did not read out the last sentence. Therefore, Honourable Speaker, the Attorney General has very clearly made the relevant amendment as per the recommendation stated in the Supreme Court's determination. So these amendments have been made in a way power is vested on provincial high courts, exactly how it is stated in the constitution. So the constitution has been honoured by 100%.
President's former Chief of Staff IHK Mahanama and the former Chairman of the State Timber Corporation, Piyasena Dissanayake, who were arrested for soliciting a bribe of 20 million rupees, have been further remanded until the 22nd of this month.
The order was issued when the suspects were produced before the Colombo Fort Additional Magistrate Saman Sri Ragala. The lawyers representing the first defendant, IHK Mahanama, said their client is suffering from a serious heart condition as well as asthma. A request was made that the defendant be remanded only for a week. Objecting the request, the Bribery Commission said that if bail was granted to the defendant, it could hamper the investigations. Taking these points into consideration, the magistrate ordered that the suspects be remanded until the 22nd. The Bribery Commission meanwhile informed courts that they have commenced an investigation into an incident where a person by the name of Joseph Pillai, who is allegedly an intelligence officer of the LTTE, met with the managing director of the Indian company that lodged this particular case and asked for the details of the case. The Assistant Director General of the Bribery Commission, Asita Anthony, said that necessary steps have been taken to lodge a complaint with the Cinnamon Garden Police.
Now, in the wake of a major bribery and corruption scandal involving two public officials, Newsfirst wrote to the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, to query whether they hold anti-corruption efforts as a benchmark for loans.
The Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund approved a 3-year $1.5 billion extended fund arrangement to support the government's economic reform agenda. The reforms are aimed to reduce fiscal deficit, rebuild foreign exchange reserves and introduce a simpler and more equitable tax system. Since the loan facility was approved, the IMF has been regularly reviewing the government's progress on economic reforms and tying delivery to loan installments. According to the IMF, the member country has primary responsibility for selecting, designing and implementing the policies that will make the IMF-supported program successful. Though the IMF has a policy for dealing with corruption dating from 1997, which they say is backed up with concrete and specific policy advice, when Newsfirst asked the IMF as to why they didn't consider getting the government to comply with the zero-tolerance policy against corruption, the IMF responded by saying that they address issues of governance in its broad analysis of the economic situation. According to media reports, corruption has cost Sri Lanka 2% of its GDP in 2012. In a backdrop of widespread bribery and corruption that has plagued Sri Lanka, shouldn't the IMF be benchmarking anti-corruption efforts when approving loans to the government of Sri Lanka?
Now, I think I have been talking to you about IMF. IMF World Bank is only interested to bring conditions on the people. Whatever the benefits the people are going to get, IMF and World Bank comes and puts, yeah, you have to increase that, you have to increase the tax, you have to do that. Now this 15% gold also. At a time when the Tamil community was having a festival, and that day they used to buy gold. That affected the minority Tamil community in a big way. These are conditions that are given by the IMF, World Bank, and they, why don't the IMF and World Bank give this? If this government or a minister caught robbing the country, that affects the people in a big way, we will not do anything to the country. Why don't the IMF and World Bank say this? They won't say that. They are not interested in the ministers robbing. They are only interested in that whatever effect that can bring in to the masses of this country. So that is why I told you World Bank and IMF is there only as a guideline.
Clean Energy Seminar for the establishment of Norway-Sri Lanka Research Consortium on Clean Energy Technologies was held in Colombo today.
The seminar was organized by Norwegian Embassy, Western Norway University of Applied Sciences and Sri Lanka Energy Managers Association. State Minister of Finance Eran Wickramaratne, Norwegian Ambassador to Sri Lanka and several other dignitaries attended the event.
I'm aware that there are technical challenges as well as institutional challenges facing government. In this age of digitization, modern technology and innovation is here to stay. Therefore, it is far better to embrace and be ahead of the curve and be left behind. Sri Lanka has the resources to be part of a carbon-neutral future. The main energy resource in Norway is hydropower, but in addition, Norway has become a solar power pioneer and has vast wind energy resources, both onshore and offshore. It is time to move towards clean energy with the use of technology to do more on product and process innovation. Research can be a source for inspiration and encouragement.
Western Norway University of Applied Sciences and University of Jaffna jointly secured Norwegian Partnership Program for Global Academic Cooperation, NORPAT, grant up to 4.7 million Norwegian kroners, is about 85 million Sri Lankan rupees. Over the period of 5 years, only 21 out of 114 eligible project applications have been selected for funding by Norwegian Center for International Cooperation in Education. In addition, Royal Norwegian Embassy in Sri Lanka has funded 112 million Sri Lankan rupees over a period of 3 years for a project on capacity building and establishment of research consortium in nanomaterials for clean energy technologies.
Projects for larger scale for wind and solar PV, which way are we going? To me, it is in fact a little bit uncertain as to what the government's thinking is, but depending on, of course, the capacity that would be offered for the developers, firstly depends on the capability of the grid to absorb renewable energy and to continue to remain stable. You all know Sri Lanka is an isolated grid. And it is already experiencing delays of implementing the baseload power generation. And Sri Lanka also has been talking for a long time about an interconnection to India, which has not happened yet. And of course, given that fact, even if we get interconnected, South India is already surplus in renewable energy right now until their demand grows further.
A seminar on the Inland Revenue Act was held in Colombo today. Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Organisation Limited, Chandima Rodrigo, moderated the panel discussion.
Can you expand on Section 14 on rent? Because I see Section 14 conflicting with the main deduction section as well. Then you all go and call the main deduction section as residual section. So can you explain everything and say how whatever is not deductible, whether the taxpayer is going to lose that amount, or whether the inland revenue is thinking giving certain benefits?
Section 14 relates to repair and improvement expenses. Actually, under Section 11, capital nature expenses are not allowable as a deduction. Therefore, to claim capital allowances, that kind of specific provisions are provided in the new Act. Repair and improvement expenses are incurred on depreciable assets, irrespective of whether they are capital nature or not, we can deduct, but there is a limitation.
That means repair expense that happens after the asset gain fully depreciated will accrue a depreciable value over another 5 years, if that is the case.
No. After expiring the depreciable period, the full amount we are going to allow as a deduction.
That's good. But it is not stated specifically in the statute.
Yes, not stated, but we cannot, after that we cannot restrict that amount. Right. And the intention of this Act is to allow total amounts incurred in the production of income. Therefore, we are of the view to allow that amount as a deduction.
I think we are blessed that Department of Inland Revenue identify the intention of the Act better than the Parliament who decide to approve the intention of the Act, because it's written totally differently. What the Deputy Commissioner of Inland Revenue explained was the repair and maintenance that was after the expiry of depreciation would have not been allowed as a deductible expense, which means when the repairs are highest, it may not be allowed as a deductible expense to calculate income tax. Inland Revenue would change this position and make justice to the taxpaying public. And it is encouraging to see that Inland Revenue is taking positive steps despite of the Act saying otherwise.
United National Party parliamentarian Buddhika Patirana arrived at the Police Financial Crimes Investigations Division this morning.
Parliamentarian Buddhika Patirana arrived at the police FCID to provide a statement regarding a complaint.
There are serious irregularities in 2018 tender to supply food for the tri-forces. This year's tender should have been awarded by December 31st last year. Unfortunately, we are going on the 5th month this year. It is a shame to say that almost half the year is now over, and the Defence Ministry has been unable to complete awarding the tender for the year 2018. Food is being supplied based on the tender awarded in 2017. We are not asking for the tender to be awarded to the lowest bidder. Consider the least cost as well as the quality. The tender could be awarded not to the lowest bidder nor the bidder after that, but the fourth or fifth bidder.
And moving on to sports news now, the team that clinched, the Sri Lankan team actually, that clinched the gold medal at the 100 meters women's race at the 2018 South Asian Junior Athletics Championship lost the opportunity to participate in the Asian Junior Athletics Championship this year. There are also talks that the former manager of the South Asian Junior Athletics Championship, Anil Veerasinghe, will be reappointed to the post of manager. A team comprising of 12 members were named to participate in the Asian Junior Athletics Championship in Japan from the 7th to the 10th of June. The women's team, who clinched the gold medal with a new tournament record, was not included in the list.
And that is a wrap of Primetime News. Thank you very much for watching. I am Shahin Jurampati.
And I'm Mahina Bongso. It was a pleasure having you with us here as always. Take care and good night.